quick question. Why does it necessarily have to be that we start with one neshama and then we break it up so that everyone is still connected? Why can't we just, why aren't all the neshamas blocked and separate and like people? I mean,
Right. But isn't there intrinsically a connection between two things that came from the same place? They're the same, like you meet a landsman on the street. There's automatically a connection with the fact that we came from the same, like your brother. Why does it have to be that brothers are connected? I'm not explaining. I'm only making your kasha bigger, but I'm just saying, why is it? I don't know, but it certainly is, right?
Why is it a feeling?
Well, it's more than a feeling. It's a under normal circumstances, it would be an exception in history if brothers were not connected. Meaning, if there's that sub-level of connection. Yaakov and Esau, the Shakehu was. I was looking for the source just before we begin, or I should say before we end. I've been looking for the source for this idea that is given as such a double poshet of that there's one neshama and then it breaks into many neshamas. So the Ramak here brings it very clearly. That's a source, but I was looking for an earlier source. So I was looking online. So a number of the Mekubolim online refer to the concept, but they don't bring a source. So, as they say, Kiyodua, so I'm doing better than them because they don't even bring the Tomer Devorah. So, you are sitting with a great Mekubal here. But I online. So I don't want to mention names. I don't want to, but a couple of them. I'm talking very pretty famous people. So they have Litkuvot. You can actually send them an email. So I said, okay, so I'll send them an email. So I sent out 3 emails to big Mekubalim as to what's the source for this, and one of them said, "Enli Musag." The other one said, "Lo Zocher," and they actually answered. It was very interesting. Lo Zocher, and the third one said Tomer Devorah. So does it? We are here at the source.
Where's the foundation?
Right. So I'm very curious about it. I just want, before we close the book, I want to ready to buy a margin over here. What the source is. So I put in a call to Rav Ginsburg, who's in Chabad. He's probably the biggest Mekubal in the door. So just to try to find out. But so far, I don't know. I do want to. I'm spending a lot of time on this Leshe'eris Nachlaso, Hadalad, but so did the Tomer Devorah. He spent much more time on this than he did on all the other mitos. So I just want to finish it off together. I don't think tomorrow, the Avodas Hayom is such that I don't think we'll be able to have a shiur tomorrow. So it's just something to go to Yom Kippur with. So the maskana is Adam Chaveroi. So too is it a man with his fellow man. Again, if we're learning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Klal Yisrael, and it's not just this creation that now becomes separate of himself, but in fact it's an extension of himself, the nerve endings of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzelem Elikim, the neshama, we know the neshama is that way, right? Neshama shenasata bi, shenafachta bi, ata nafachta, shenasata bi. It's a chelak of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, godliness, however you want to understand it, within us. So there's a connection there. So therefore it follows that it's not just this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. It is that, but there's an omek to that also. The omek is that it's you don't sort of hit your hand and say that's going to hurt me more than it hurts you. That is me. It's not it's different. It's different. It's not even a you and a me. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if needing to give an onesh to somebody in Klal Yisrael, it actually kaviyachol, as much as we can understand, creates pain. When I was a bacher here in yeshiva, it was always so stuck in my mind. There was a Dr. Jacobson who that the Yeshiva Bachram used to go to. I think it was a Givat Shaul. I'm talking about in the early 70s. So at that time, he was an old man. He'd be alive today, he'd be in the hundreds somewhere. At that time, he was an old man, but he was a doctor, so I think he was Dutch, I think. But I remember him telling a story that, when he was, I don't remember the circumstances, but I just remember he was alone someplace and in some war somewhere, and he needed an operation desperately. He was a doctor, but he needed an operation desperately. It was an appendix operation, and there was no way to get it, so he did an operation on himself. Like they say, you shouldn't do an operation on your father or on your son. Can you imagine such a thing?
Had the good mirrors.
What?
Good mirrors.
Did the operation? He knew it had to be done, and he did it. So
probably without anesthetic also.
Huh?
Probably without anesthetic.
He didn't put himself to sleep, right? Can't do a general on this, It's without anything. I mean, what did he have already? It just.
Did Avram do a meal on him, or did someone else?
Chara did it on himself, right? So So and his Mila already is. It sounds easier than an appendix. You don't think so? Look, you're talking to the wrong guy. I mean, to me, even the thought of getting a filling freaks me out. I gotta. but it's just like such an interesting thing. But when you start thinking about, it's not like man talking to appendix. I am now going to remove you. One cannot distance himself from his appendix until you actually take it out. So, but you got to do what you got to do. A question of life or death, you have to do what you have to do. So when you think about a concept of Hakadosh Baruch Hu giving an onesh to Klal Yisrael and feeling the onesh, we're talking about it's a very strong idea. It's not like I hate to do this, but it's much more. I'm actually hurting, but Ba'esa. So if now you take the concepts as the Tomer Devorah, which is a very, very strong concept, and you say, well, that's the same connection between Jews. Let's talk about Jews because it's easier. The same connection as we all came from the same neshama. Notwithstanding Rabbi Chaim's question, okay, therefore, but the fact of the matter is that apparently it remains connected. It's not just breaks apart into stardust. It actually remains connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's all part of the Achdus Hashem, as we learned. That's all part of saying the Achdus Hashem, as what the Barditchever taught us. It's all part of Hashem Echad. So philosophically, we've taken a shift from being part of Hashem to being part of each other, and I explained a couple of days ago that's why if one gets involved with the tzibur, so there's a certain you get the whole tzibur to you. If you daven to, the Ramchal says, if you daven in a minyan, so it's a nes of a minyan. It's Exeris HaKasa, but there's a nes that throughout a minyan, when you'll take 10 random Jews together, you will have every important midah necessary to approach HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Somewhere in that minyan, somewhere in somebody's life, he was Moshe Nefesh for kashrus. Somewhere in somebody's life, he helped somebody in a way that really hurt him out. Now, there's that's the oneness is that somewhere amongst 10 Jews, it's like there's statistical games that you can play this way. That if there's a certain amount of people in the room, there will always be 2 people with the same birthday. So somewhere in that room, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Musavev in that minyan, that you've got every midah together. If we could pool them together and put them in one basket, we've got every midah needed to approach HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it doesn't necessarily even get better or more midos with 11 people or 1,100 people, because you have it all with the 10. Now you can you can make the basket even stronger. 2, 3 people, but all midos are there because we're not clothes, so it's not like everybody's got the same. We're all Moshe Nefesh to learn Torah. Somewhere in there, and I'm not talking about somebody necessarily who Moshe Nefesh and learn a Kollel. I don't even that. But for 1 minute, For 1 minute, a person was Moshe Nefesh to learn Torah. A person was Moshe Nefesh to go to a meeting. That goes into the pool there, And when you push with the crowd, so the all of a sudden the connection between us becomes very strong. That's becomes very important, and you don't want to daven by yourself anymore.
Why is it min? Use of min? Why does it tend have to be min?
Kach Gosar Hashem.
And what is the 600,000?
Don't forget the Sherish Neshama always comes from a man, like the Chava came from Adam.
What does the 600,000 do? And 600,000.
Okay, so I'm not sure how the geometry works,
Right.
and it's out of the scope. But apparently the Rosh Neshamas are 600,000. But okay, now let's take it. That's yesterday's term. Let's take it a step further. That's what it means in terms of joining the klal. But here he says something. This is really, I'm actually, no Kabbalah here, just played Musar, but I'm having a difficult time wrapping my brain around this. Kol kach adam im chaverai. I'm sorry, let's go a little bit further. V'lakach, that's where I want to start. V'lakach, because of everything that we learned, roi la'adam liyos chafetz b'tuvasai shel chaverai. Ve'enoi toiva al tovas chaverai. Ukvoida yeh chaviv alav kishalai. Sharehu hu mamish. Sounds easy. It's when you start thinking about this, it's like really interesting, like how to be mamish happy that somebody else has hatzlacha. I'm happy when I have hatzlacha. Happy if I make a lot of money or achieve a great achievement, kashmias or ruchnias, whatever it might be. But we're polite, but it seems like, I was thinking about it, that are we genuinely happy when somebody else is successful? It's easier with your son, because then I'm successful.
Fell.
Right?
Fell.
Well, it's not just fell, if he got the Genius of the Year award, so probably got it for me, right? Worst comes to worst, I chose well in a wife. But it's easier, to do that. Now he's not saying here, be altruistic, be jealous. He's saying harehu, sharehu, hu, babish. You're talking about a random person. You see a random person who's successful in something that you would like to be successful in. Otherwise, we don't care. Are we genuinely happy with that person's success? When you maybe Erev Yom Kippur, I get a little bit paranoid about cheshbon nefesh, but when we talk about to fargin, which I really don't know if and what the English translation of is. In Hebrew, there's a translation of lefargen. So lefargen, so they can't come up with anything either. I looked up lefargen in the dictionary. It took them about 3 lines to say what word means. You don't do this, you don't that, you don't hold a grudge. But what's the word?
Grudge. Not
to begrudge. You already got a few. I don't even know what begrudge means, to be honest with you. I know I use the word. I don't know what begrudge means. In Yiddish, there's an expression: farges, farkuk, and fargin, which comes from the German varges, varkuk, and vargin. So for it's interesting, those fours, for forget, forgive, and forgin. So we know what forget means. We know what forgive means. But forgin is a little bit more difficult. But let's just understand. I think we're talking about something even more than that. But let's just even start with that. To fargin and nachayim it means that I'm okay with the fact that you. It's easy for us. We live here in Eretz Yisrael, and we're pretty. We already came here, and we're already made some kind of commitment to becoming tzadikim, I hope. But it's easy for us if somebody else has a nicer car. Who cares? Somebody else has a nicer house. who really cares? You know, maybe you'd say, "Oh, it'd be nice to have a nice house," but it's not. This is not our life over here. But what's difficult is like when somebody else finishes Shas, you know, or when somebody else seems to have like the energy to really help people. So that you have to also forgive. Like you know, somebody has a spiritual accomplishment, kavod, maybe that's like a hard, like. So I think I just want to point this out. I think there's a. I don't understand it really. I'm having a hard time understanding it, but I think there seems to be a human tendency to, when somebody else is matzliach, to knock it down. That's just because his father-in-law is this and his mother-in-law is that.
But if you think that it's if you think it's part of you, then that's the way to look at it.
Well, that's what he's saying. That's the point. This is the answer. But before we get the answer, my question is something. I don't know why it's so difficult for people to like why is it so difficult? Why do we have this human need? I'm just asking. I don't know the answer, but why do we have this like human need to slug up any success somebody else has? Like why is?
And to just look at it in a different light, why did Hashem put that person in front of us to show that to us?
Okay, even better. I remember once asking in yeshiva, I was not asking, saying, I don't know why, I don't remember the context, but I remember once saying to my Rebbe, like, you know, he was talking about ask so-and-so, you know, he'll know the answer. I didn't understand the Taisus, so we ask so-and-so. So like, I had this regesh of, like, you know, what do you ask so-and-so? Like, why should he know this Taisus? And I shouldn't understand this Taisus. Like, I had this kind of, I was 15 years old. So I said, I just said, like, I'm envious or I'm jealous of him that, you know, like, he has the ability to understand the Taisus and I don't. So, so he said, why? He took your chachma? So he took yours, like he took yours and he stole it. I mean, he is his chachma. You have your chachma. What's the? Okay, so I wish I could look at the world that way. I try to. I don't think I'm worse than anybody else in this regard. I'm just saying that there's a. But what is the Matthias of Kina? Like Patla knew somebody else should be Matzliach.
Compare ourselves to someone else, and they did it and we didn't. So it's like I feel like there's a tefillah on ourselves.
So the only way to do it, okay. So the only way to do it is to slug the other to bring the other person down.
Yeah.
He didn't really do it. I don't know. I think it's true. I don't know if it's. You know, I always tell the story when I was a Rav of Shul in America. So there was a parking spot reserved for a rabbi, you know, parking spot, you know, which was close. It was hard to get a parking spot, so it was a parking spot. So one time I came, and somebody was parked in my spot. Not one time, hundreds of times. Somebody was parked in my spot, but this time it was like a really cool-looking Ferrari. You know, it was parked in my spot. So it was like a funny thing to say that parked in my spot. You know, reserved for rabbi. So, but anyways, I just had parked somewhere else, obviously, and I just went. I was just like a fleeting thought. I came into shul, and there was actually a discussion about how they're paying the rabbi too much. It's not like, you know, if he's able to buy a Ferrari like that, like, you know, what are we paying? Like, that's not what we, you know. You know, so, I mean, obviously it's silly. I didn't, you know, to drive a Ferrari, but I just was thinking to myself, like, like, you know, why aren't you happy that I would have enough money to have a Ferrari? Like, what's this Saras Ayin that it somehow bothers you? You drive a Ferrari. Like, why would it bother you? Just a thought. Why would it bother anybody that anybody has something? So you're right. It's simple, Kina, right? I think Chazal are more sophisticated than Kina a little bit because they call it Al-Chet Shechatasi Lefanecha B'Tzaras Ayin.
Isn't that a derivative? That's not my point. Isn't that all of these things, Tzaras Ayin and all these things?
Well, the Kina category.
Yeah, they're all derivatives.
What does it have to do with, while we're at it, Kina is belief. Sarah is ba'ayin. What does the eyes have to do with it? What do the eyes have to do with it?
Sarah is also limited. Lashon Sarah. I mean, you have a very limited vision to what's going on. That's Sarah's sign.
And
you can only see your Da'at Amos and that's it. You can't see the bigger picture.
how does that? What are you explaining?
I think that's what leads to it. Meaning the Chazal are defining it in a very deep way.
Open up your head.
Right.
Open up your heart.
What's going on?
But why ayin?
So signs of pitach.
When you see it, you
Tunnel
get that
vision.
feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Ayn Ra, Lev Chomed, first. So you can't stop.
What your eye sees, you want.
But if it doesn't
want
get to the
whatever
lev,
your eye
it's not a
sees.
regesh. It's not that the eyes have a regesh. So if the eyes are an input to the lev, these are all inputs to kina.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Good. You really sound like you want to say something. As I read this medrash, I mentioned this medrash before. It jars me. The medrash in Yalkut Shimoni in Parshas Vayelech speaks about the last day of Moshe Rabbeinu's life and handing over not just the leadership to Yoshua, but the ability to prophesize. There's another piece of it. In other words, Moshe Rabbeinu did not die a prophet. He had to lose his prophecy and give it to Yoshua for some reason. Couldn't be two prophets? No. There's one person who's that Gadol Hador, and Yoshua had to, Moshe Rabbeinu had to perforce be demoted in order for Yoshua to go up. Now, how would that feel? So, Moshe Rabbeinu, what are we talking about? Malach at this point, the last day of his life. So the Medrash says that the whole story, but the part that important, that's Hashem said to Moshe, "Asay lo," on the last day, "Asay lo," do to Yoshua, Kashem shaya osay lecha. You need to treat him, Yoshua, the way he usually treats you. Meaning now he's the Rabbi and you're the Talmud. Miyad hishki Moshe v'holach lebeso shel Yoshua. So now what used to happen daily is Yoshua would come to Moshe's tent and say, "Okay, Moshe Rabbeinu, let me walk you to the oil moed." And now, different Moshe Rabbeinu, you go to Yoshua's tent and you give him the kavod, and you bring him to the tent. I heard Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem Zocha to see things from Gedolim was like such an interesting, my pleasure to share. But somebody told me that he said, "Where do you learn?" I said, "I learned by Rav Steinberg." I learned by Rav Steinberg. So he said, "I will tell you." This is an old person that told me this. He said, "I'll tell you an interesting thing." Rav Steinberg. So he said that when the Rosh Yeshiva of Chafetz Chaim, David Leibowitz, was nifter, he was Rosh Yeshiva of Chafetz Chaim, so there was like a bit of a division in the yeshiva there, who should be the Rosh Yeshiva. So Rav David Leibowitz had a son, Rav Hanoch Leibowitz, who became the Rosh Yeshiva, and had Rav Steinberg, who was maybe a little bit older, and went to the mirror. It was a different, a little bit of a different, not for me to compare between Rosh Yeshivas, but I think a little bit different. And many of the Talmidim wanted Rav Steinberg to be thought it would be the natural thing for him to be the Rosh Yeshiva, but he wasn't the son, and etc. So the Rav Steinberg paskin that he should be the Rosh Yeshiva. He said that's the correct thing, and he actually at that time he wrote a little kuntras on the which I have on the sugya of whether Rosh Yeshiva goes be Yerusha, whether there's such a thing as a Yerusha. That he divided up into a number of issues. There's the title, there's the finances, there was on the building, there's a lot of different parts to it. But anyways, he paskin kilu for himself, and Reb Henoch was a tzaddik. He said, he's a posek, what a paskin, that's the. So it must have been somewhat of an uncomfortable. It could have. They're still human beings. They're human beings. This was a talking about I don't know how many years ago, 70 years ago, something like that. Huh?
Yeah, I think we finished with 24.
24. Okay, so it was a very chashuv person. I'm not very chashuv person. You were Chafetz Chaim family. The Anyway, so somebody told me. Rav Shapiro, so that's my son-in-law Moshe Becker's grandfather, who learned in Chafetz. He was a Rebbe, Hasidic Rebbe. So he learned in Chafetz Chaim at that time. So when I first met him, so he tells me that the mark of the Rosh Yeshiva was that he gave the Shir Klali on Tuesday. So that was the defining point. If you're the Rosh Hashiva, so you give that particular shiur. Otherwise, it's just the title. So he said that Rav Hedach, came to give the shiur. 24 years, 24 years old. And probably many of the Talmidim were older than him. And Rav Scheinberg wanted to reinforce the issue, so he came to the shiur, which only made Rav Hedach very nervous. He's giving the shiur. And he was like say he was nervous, but he was giving the shiur. He was giving the shiur clearly, and so Rav Scheinberg in the middle asked a question on the shiur. So he said, Rav Scheinberg said that, what did the Rosh Hashiva mean when you said this and this point? So Rav Hedach, somebody asked him like 30 years later, like when exactly you became the Rosh Hashiva. He said, when Rav Scheinberg said, when did the Rosh Hashiva, das heißt zu verginnen nach Hayid. That's to vergin. In other words, not just, okay, you be the Rosh Hashiva, I'm Broigus, okay, I'll even sit here. Like he crowned him, the Rosh Hashiva, and all the tension, all the stress ended with the good-heartedness of, what did the Rosh Hashiva mean? And he said the whole shiur changed. Like the whole, okay, now the Rosh Hashiva, so the whole shiur changes, the Yata D'Shmaya changed, everything changed. So here, the Medrash says, Asay loy kishem shayu oisei l'cha, miad, like by the Akedah, hishkim Moshe v'holach lebeso shel Yeshua. So Moshe went walking towards Yeshua's house. Yoshua chapta Shrek. What's going on here? Moshe Rabbeinu coming to my house. Yatsu, so he ran out of his own tent. Laloich halach Moshe l'smoiloi shel Yoshua. So like if you're walking with your Rebbe, so you have to walk on or the Rebbe has to be on the right side, on the right. But here Moshe went. Halach Moshe l'smolo shel Yeshua. He put Yeshua on the right. So that was a clear mark to the whole Klal Yisrael that Yeshua is the Rebbe. I'm not the Rebbe. Just picture this situation. Nichnasu l'Ohel Moed. They went into the Ohl Moed together. Yeshua's his first time. Nichnasu l'Ohel Moed. Yorad Amud Ha'anan, and the Anan, as it did, came down. The Shechina came down in the form of a cloud. The hifsik b'neihem, and the Shechina landed on Yoshua and did not left Moshe Rabbeinu out in the cold. So here's Moshe Rabbeinu standing there. Like Humbi Yisrael from Moshe Od, be standing there, and Yoshua is getting the Shechina over here. B'shidistalik Amud Ha'anan, when the Amud Ha'anan went away, Amar Moshe LeYoshua. So Moshe said to Yoshua, Ma'amar l'cha dibur. So what did he say, God? Ma'amar l'cha dibur. Overlaid, Yeshua said to him, Kishahaya hadibur nigla alecha yodea hayisi b'haya b'daber b'ach. Did I used to ask you always, what did God say? No. Yeah. So I don't think that Yeshua was nasty, like it wasn't a nice guy. Just tell him what God said. But there's a din that if Hashem gives you a nevuah, unless He says labor, you're not allowed to say it over. Maybe He's just talking to me. So if He wanted you to hear, He would have put the Shechina on, the Anan would have come down on both of us. So the fact that it came down on me, not you. So Yeshua, now the Rebbe, gives Musar to Moshe Rabbeinu for what are you getting involved in my business here of talking with the Shechina. Oisa Shah, at that moment, Hischel Moshe et Sovach. Moshe began to scream. V'yamar, and he said, Meya misos v'leikina achas. You heard this, Doron? Meya misos v'leikina achas. I'd rather die 100 deaths than have this feeling of kina right now. I'm not saying anything so complimentary to Moshe. I'm saying that what we're talking about is so deeply human to kind of be jealous. Moshe Rabbeinu wouldn't have been jealous. Hey, Yoshua, nice scarf. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the Hashras Hashchina on Klal Yisrael. So even somebody as great as Moshe Rabbeinu was having a difficult time. I'd rather die than have this. So even though, Huh?
He was makir.
He was makir the kina. So the godless of this Adam called Moshe is that he was makir, that this is something that's very, very real. So I have a new such a simple thing, which is like a new insight into the parsha. There's a Amish parsha that Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem tells him, Alei al har nevo, like go up on Malas HaPiska, Urei es haaretz, go up on the mountain, climb, look at Eretz Yisrael, and you look at Eretz Naphtali and Eretz Eretz. It goes through the whole, And I'm thinking to myself, this is like babish, like torture. This has to be. Why? Like, okay, it may have been so. Like Hina Achas. Could you imagine the feeling of Moshe Rabbeinu? Like, okay, I hit a rock. These guys built an egel. I mean, these guys. Am I really worse than them? That they're zocha to go to Eretz Yisrael and I'm not zocha to go to Eretz Yisrael? I'm not saying any chiddush. We know Moshe Rabbeinu was upset, but to go and to have to look, and if you look at the Chumash, it's like, so look, this is the land of God, this is the land of Naphtali, this is the land of, and Chazal say that he saw from all the way to the north, the Golan, all the way to the Negev, and he saw all the way to the Mediterranean. He had a special, Baruch gave a special ayin. Because I'll say that on Einoi Loikos, he was able to see, not only that, he was able to see the whole history unfold. So he saw at that moment, the Nevuah, he looked at Eretz Yisrael. You imagine the man standing on a mountain, and seeing the Milchamos, and seeing the Binyan Beis HaMikdash, and seeing the Charbon Beis HaMikdash, and the return of the exiles of the time of Ezra, and us, just to see that whole thing, and to say, I'm not part of it. I'm not part of this whole. What kind of, like, and why? Okay, don't want to let me go to Eretz, but Hashem tells him, you take, look. So comes Rashi and Chazal, and he says, like, what's to look, what's to see? So he said, Litein lahem ayin toiva. Who's apparently Moshe Rabbeinu want to give like you give an ayin hara, you want to give an ayin tova, and he conquered this, and he was able to stand on the mountain. This man who recognized his own feeling of jealousy with the Shchinas Hashem, he was able to stand on this mountain and fargin Naphtali and Gad and Asher and Yehuda and Reuven and Shimon and Levi. He was able to fargin the Beis HaMikdash. He was able to fargin you and the Beis HaMikdash. It's okay. Like it's okay. Can you imagine like working so hard, let's say, to get to a certain, you want to build a beautiful building and then you have to die, you're not allowed to walk in with David HaMelech. So it's to fargin is so divine, it's so godly to be able to do such a thing. But that's the libud of Moshe Rabbeinu. So it's not just he stood there and he saw and he looked. He stood there and nasan lahem ayin tova, kedei litein lahem ayin tova. So unlike what you were saying, it's not just intake. Apparently, from the eyes, there's some output, and the output, like laser treatment. So the output of Moshe Rabbeinu was that he was able to put an ayin tova on every moment on every one of us. On every moment in history, of every corner of Eretz Yisrael has that ayin tova. If something would have been, nistam with a lead jacket, not been able to say, so the oranges won't grow there. So, like, if you look at the miracles, of even the agricultural miracles that have taken place even in the last 50 years, just because Moshe Rabbeinu looked there. It's pashut that Moshe Rabbeinu looked there, and that's what he saw. This koach was I think, according to the Tomer Devorah, was Moshe Rabbeinu understanding that this is not you, this is me. And in a certain way, it was selfish, if you will, but not self-centered, but it was him. In other words, the ultimate realization of this great man, Morenu v'Rabbeinu, Moshe Rabbeinu, was that he was able to feel bachpatli if it's me, bachpatli if it's you, as long as we're here,
But for him, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah. So, but it's okay. It's a nachas. It's a nachas. So that's. So if you look at the words, really have to enjoy toivas shel chaverei. Ve'enoi toiva al toivas chaveroi. Ayin toiv. Moshe, ayin tova.
It's a form of kinyan, no? The eye.
Hmm?
Kinyan. It's a form of kinyan. It's a form of kinyan by seeing something, which is why
Yes.
the Haber will not look at certain things.
Has a koach.
As a koach.
Ukvodo yeh chaviv alav kishalo. I'm mamish just as happy. But this is a very this is a big madrega, I think, but it's something that I'm just as happy that you're getting covered that I'm getting, like at least one of us is getting covered. It's like a good thing. Sharei hu mamish. Umitam zen itztavenu v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. So here we have the omek, says the Ramak, the big makubal, that this is the pshat v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. This is where Rabbi Kiva said zeklal gadol b'Torah, that there's the kamocha v'roi sheyirtza b'kashrus chaveroi. Kashrus chaver means I want my friend to have a good reputation. See, this is a new gentlemen. This is a whole new reason not to talk lashon hara. Because does anybody talk lashon hara about themselves? You're not allowed to. But it's does anybody really, except for maybe some kind of a agenda-driven, self-deprecating, does anybody really want to ruin their own reputation? Well, so like the whole new reason not to talk lashon hara, not because Chavetz Chaim says, and not because I'm going to lose all my mitzvahs, and not because even it's an avera, but like who talks about that? How would you come to talk about? Would anybody talk lashon hara about their son? Get defensive. I was saying something yesterday, if you don't mind me. I indulge me to I was saying something yesterday, like my own cheshbon nefesh, like I have like this syndrome, a psychological problem that if somebody's like throughout all the years in school and everything, if like I'm a pretty anal guy, I'm not an aggressive person that much, but like if somebody got abused in any way, physically, in any way, any of my children, like in school and all that, so go beat the heck out of them. Like I see red. I mean, I physically beat him up, but I do whatever I have to do to demote that guy, to hurt that guy. It's a bit of a chasar. I mean, sometimes you got to be stand up, and maybe it's not necessarily always the right thing to do. Whether right or wrong, I did it. Like that was my I just did it. Like ask my kids, like embarrass them. You know what I mean? I just I go court of the principal in the hall. One time a principal hit my kid across. Actually punctured his eardrum because he was peeling an orange in class. But I didn't. I got in the car. I drove to Shul Kamenetsky. I complained. I protested. And then left it alone. P.S. That principal's in jail now for child abuse 20 years later, and I don't forget him nothing. but my point is that there's a certain regesh when it's yours, almost an exaggerated regesh, maybe a bad thing even, like a mugzam. But but it's a sign that you're really connected. And that's something that you feel, and that's something that the kid feels. They're really connected. Overprotective maybe, but really connected. So how connected are we that way to somebody who's not you or not your child? So that's what he's saying. It's a whole different level. We get defensive when it comes to our children. We get defensive, even if they're wrong. We get defensive. Automatically you find yourself being defensive. So maybe we've got to be careful with that. But that's a siman, at least, that hu mamish. That's a real connection. No?
Why wasn't Rav Scheinberg's response about the Tosfos? It's your chachma. Why was it? I mean, the implication was.
I think that's what he meant. I really do think what he meant. I don't think so. I think what he meant is that here's a neshama, let's say, if we put it in our terms, it broke up into a number of different pieces. You have this piece, you have that piece. So you can use his chachma. I think that's exactly what he meant, actually. That's exactly the way I took it. You can use his chachma and be happy with it and be jealous about it. But you're right, maybe this is even deeper than what he was saying.
Because it really is easier to be happy for someone if you realize that really what's theirs is not yours. Meaning that's their, tafkid or avodah or schar or whatever it is, because that's them, and
he didn't take mine.
Right.
He didn't take mine. Right. So that's one. That's one madrega of not being jealous, but maybe there's a higher madrega. I'll give you an example. Like, let's say, like I said before, you're dominating a minyan. So you're somech on the schusim of every single person in the minyan. So don't you want the other person to have more schusim? You know, is there anybody here who like gave up their life, you know, for not to bow down to an idol? You know, like that's who you want to die. Like, you know, the more schusim, the better. I'm not jealous. Like, let's put it in the pot. You know,
Don't you want to daven to tzaddik? I mean,
yeah. So it's like you want him to be a tzaddik.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be jealous of a tzaddik because it's good for you. So this is his. Af hu lo yirtze b'gnus chaver v'loy b'tzar v'loy b'kil kulay v'yara loy b'menu kilu hu mamish ha'yishari v'oisit tzar v'oisit toiva. So it's both on the negative side and on the positive side to feel the pain as if it's your pain, not as if it's your pain. To feel the tov, the joy, because it's your joy. So like here's like a, if I may, like just an avoda that I'm thinking that a good avoda for Erev Yom Kippur is like to have nachas from somebody. It's you know, it's such a chesed. Like so many people are starving for somebody to have nachas from them. You know, like your father's gone, your mother's gone, you're in a different country, whatever. You know, like you're older. Like the big thing is not like how much will we do just that somebody should have a little bit of nachas from us? Like the kids, our kids, so much want us to have a little bit of nachas. I'm not talking about like my joy, I have nachas. Let's say you don't have nachas. The one you're having nachas from enjoys so much that you're having nachas from that person. It's a different knetch over here. So like it's such an unbelievable. How do you have nachas from somebody? What if it's not your kid? Like, you know, we're mevarich people with nachas. It's an avoda to have nachas and to display nachas because it makes the other person feel so good. How good do I feel if somebody has nachas for my success? How good do you feel if somebody has nachas for your success? Like, how good does a chassan feel when he comes into the room and everybody goes, "Oh, that's a wonderful geschmack." You know, how good does a person feel that other people are being misameach in his simcha? It's not just such a chesed, but this is what he's saying. Who mavish. It's like the connection is there. So it's just like if you think of some, you know, like this, it's something we can do. I think like this is what Moshe Rabbeinu went from Parshas Vayelach to Parshas V'zois HaBracha. This is what he did at the last day of his life. Vayelach to V'zois HaBracha. He saw the Eretz of Naphtali, which should have been my land. And he had nachas from it. He went to the Eretz of God, which should have been my land, and he had nachas from it, a land that he's never going to step in. He had nachas from. That's ayin toiva. That was the ayin toiva. So it's something to maybe take somebody you don't have nachas from and have nachas. And you know, besides everything else, our own personal avodah, you have nachas from somebody, you mamish turn the person around. You can mamish turn a person around. I'm telling you. I'm not talking about even kids, anybody. The biggest cure of trick in history is to have nachas from somebody. In other words, if you're really misameach b'simchasei, mitzar b'tzarai, not just noisebol, but who mamish. Okay, I'm giving somebody nachas. I'll do more of it. It's such a clear thing. But let's concentrate selfishly. For us to have the nachas, you come before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and He then has nachas from us. And if he has nachas from us, so then we could really get that Gemara Chasima Toiva that we're all davening for. I have a decision to make. I guess we're going to start again after Sukkot. So I'm not sure about every day. If you want to finish the Tomer Devorah or go back to Tzaddik, you don't have to answer me. Just think. Even though not Yom Kippur.
They're talking about Shabbat.